Uh, it's funny because you talk about tall poppy syndrome. I struggle from imposter syndrome. So here we are in New Zealand, bottom of the world, building software used on the world stage. Crazy at times to think about what we've done. I was sitting at a restaurant in Hanover in Germany, having dinner, talking to somebody. The table behind me is talking about Portainer, and I'm thinking, this is nuts. How is this even possible? And it happens all the time, all over the world. I'm Neil, the co-founder of Portainer. Quite a long and diverse career so far. That means I'm old. I don't look it. As mentioned there, I started out as an engineer. I will always be an engineer. I like to solve problems. I can't help myself. But went through consulting, had the joys of living up in Singapore and working with some amazing people, talking to some amazing large organizations. I then transitioned and I was CEO of a public cloud provider, a VMware-based public cloud provider, which was the first time that I was actually a customer of one of my own consulting engagements, and I realized I was quite a bad consultant. I didn't have much actual day-to operational experience, so whilst the solution was perfect, the ability to operate was often forgotten. From there, I transitioned, and when I came back to New Zealand, and I was bootstrapping Portainer, I was CIO of a company called NXP, who was a very large e-commerce company here. And that kind of got me into the real-world operations of cloud native, where downtime is measured in the hundreds of thousands of dollars a minute. So let's not have downtime, huh? So quite a varied career, and I think that has all put me in great stead to understand the challenges across the gamut of business. So from an engineering perspective, right the way through to IT management and even business management as well. So that's enough about me. This world at the moment is tanked. It is insanity. COVID has kicked our butt. It seriously has. Inflation is ridiculous. The cost of living is ridiculous. As a business owner, the cost of doing business is also ridiculous. Because cost of living has increased, employees are demanding salary increases to keep up with inflation, or in fact better than inflation. Sick leave, oh my goodness, the amount of sick leave I have to approve. It's really causing some serious cash constraints for organizations, not just organizations, consumers. And as a result, the competition for spend is simply brutal. To try and get money out of people, it's brutal. So to get consumers to buy things, I'm unsubscribing myself from Netflix and Disney Plus and all those things to try and recover a bit of extra cash. But from a business perspective, the only business cases that are succeeding are those that have a pretty rapid ROI. And by that I mean really under 12 months. So a lot of the long-term projects that organizations were working on have been kind of put to sleep for now. And it's actually really important to think about your organizations that you work for, and we all work for organizations. They will thrive, survive, or die the next 24 months based on how they undertake digital transformation and how they adapt to the changing economic dynamics that is really, really cost-constrained economy. So don't be a casualty. To sit by and watch a train wreck is simply terrible. We have the power. We are technical folk. We are engineers. We have the ability to engineer our organizations out of problems. We have the ability to sit and look at the services that we're offering to our company's customers and say, what can we do better? Just think about a company like Shein. Yeah, Shein, I'm sure everyone's used Shein and bought clothes. They cost $2.50. That has made a major disruption to the New Zealand fabric market, clothing market. A huge impact. That came out of nowhere. So you can't sit back and say, what are we going to do? You've got to act fast. You need to look at the global stage and say, what can we do? Now, we all have the intelligence here to look at the services we offer to our customers saying, how can we improve this? What can we do? So for your organization to thrive, you need to deliver amazing new digital services. You need to do it right now, and you need to do it within the constraints that are the IT budget. Now, that is both headcount and tooling. It's simply not acceptable to say, I need all this extra money to add this service, unless you're absolutely certain of a really, really rapid ROI. So what do? You can't afford to go and retrain all your staff. You can't afford to go and replace every single piece of tooling. How do you do it? How do you deliver new services within a lot of constraints? And it doesn't even matter if you are a more traditional, what's known as bricks and mortar company. Even if you're traditional, it doesn't matter. Digital transformation is everywhere. If you make something, if you have a production facility, there is this wonderful thing called Industry 4, IIoT, and the automation that is possible around the manufacture of goods. That's automation of machines. That is a substantial cost saving for organizations to produce items. It also may even let people bring manufacturing back from overseas, back to New Zealand, which is a good thing. But outside of that, there's also the automation of customer-facing systems. If you have applications that are customer-facing, and you have people in the middle that are taking inbound orders or inbound something and having a process to a back end, there are products like RPA automation that will automate this whole thing. This thing helps your organization save money. Analytics, supermarkets don't put items on the shelves in some random manner. It's highly, highly analyzed. There are perfect product placements. There's a lot of analytics that you can gain. There is computer vision now, so you can see who's walking around the shop, what are they looking at, where are they spending the most time, and what can you put in those positions. There's a bunch of digital transformation. Remember, it's far more than just e-commerce. Of course, e-commerce is a must too. I don't go anywhere, by the way, unless a company has a website and I can book online. If I have to call someone, I'm going elsewhere. Maybe it's because I'm an introvert. So this is where the magic of cloud native comes in. Cloud native is this amazing thing, right? It's the way, the light, the future, the now. It truly is. And that's why we're here. That's why we're here. It truly is a massive change in architectural standards. It's a far smarter way. It's the best of everything we've learned in the last 10, 15 years of how to get digital services to market. The culmination of all of that learnt experience right now, right in front of our eyes, waiting to deliver amazing services to market. So cloud native apps are amazing, right? Absolutely amazing. The prime thing about cloud native applications is they have to be platform agnostic, they have to be versioned and controlled, and almost always they're delivered in microservices. Now, why microservices? Granular improvements, quick to build, quick to scale. Right, so cloud native microservices go hand in hand. And I don't think I need to preach to the choir here. Everyone is pretty familiar with cloud native and why, but amazing. Here we go. So cloud native is all about agility. All right, so one of the great things, and I'm going to go right to left on the slide just because. One of the great things about cloud native applications is they're almost always built off open source components. Now, because they're built off open source components, that means that almost always there's no upfront license fee. So it lets you try things out. If you've got harebrained ideas, you can probably give them a go. You're not having to commit to a 3-year massive license agreement with Microsoft or Oracle or something else. You don't have to do that. So you can try things out. It also, because of that, you can actually get some rapid innovation. You can actually put out to market an MVP product, see what the market feedback is, and then iterate. Again, due to the nature of microservices, you can actually iterate smaller elements of your solution. The payment gateway could be tweaked. The actual shopping cart experience could be tweaked. You can micro-innovate based on customer feedback, positive and negative. So it's all about agility. It's all about helping your organization go faster, grow faster. So what now? 3-step plan. It's not a 12-step plan, a 3-step plan. Build or buy applications. Now, shock horror, you can buy applications, you don't have to build everything. Get yourself a platform, and I use platform in a slightly different definition, but it means the same thing, and then get it live. 3-step plan. So buy or build. If you think back a few years, everyone bought applications. We just bought apps. You went and got Microsoft Dynamics, you went and got SAP, you went and got an Oracle solution, Oracle Business Suite, you bought applications. And those applications got into production pretty quickly for a relatively predictable fixed fee and on a relatively predictable project timeline. All right? Now, sure, it didn't give you 100% of what you wanted. It was 90% good enough, but 90% good enough is good enough to get things in the market. Don't let perfect get in the way of progression. So buying applications was the way. Now, for some reason, we've all decided that we now want to become software companies. And I hear it every day. Every company is a software company. Not true. Not true. Every company should be a tech company, but not every company needs to be a software company. And there's good reason for this. You know, building software is expensive, very expensive. It's fraught with risk because you are taking on the ownership of creating something that doesn't exist. You need to make sure the thing works. You need to then support the thing, you know, patch it, maintain it, whatever else. But also the bar is very high. If you're building something versus something that's in the market, that thing in the market that you said isn't good enough, it already does this many features. If your thing does this many features and it costs you way more, yeah, you got some explaining to do. So quite often there's actually a happy medium between buying an application and tweaking or modifying it and building something from scratch. And I like to say, just let's not get too carried away thinking that we're all software companies. We're not necessarily. We're tech companies, not software companies, in my view anyway. So when to build versus when to buy, I've categorized into two things. If there is a piece of software in the market that does the job, just buy it. Just buy it. Or if an open source solution is available, use it. Don't build it because you can. Again, we're all engineers. We all have the skills. Doesn't mean we have to do it. I can drive with my feet. I shouldn't. The only time genuinely where I think that you want to build an application from scratch is if A, there's nothing available, or B, it is your primary point of difference in the market. So if you're Netflix, their digital experience is their point of difference. It makes sense for them to build something amazing. If it is not your primary point of difference, don't necessarily default to build. And again, unless you have an incredibly strong internal software dev team and are willing to maintain that software dev team over time and continually invest building a platform, think twice. Again, the company that I was CIO with, they actually invested in their own e-commerce layer. And I saw the cost to maintain that e-commerce layer. I could have replaced that overnight with Magento. I could have. But we had so much sunk cost now, so much sunk cost, we just simply couldn't replace it. It didn't do anything special that Magento didn't. You know, back 4, 5, 6 years ago when they built it for the first time, it was pretty amazing. But since then, the open source ecosystem took off because Magento's got thousands of developers versus the 4 that I had building this e-commerce platform. So you simply can't keep up with the industry trends. So you know, unless you're amazing, think twice. Also, cloud native devs, you guys are as rare as hen's teeth. I don't know if you've heard that phrase, but you know, you're rare as hen's teeth. You really are. And if you're building a cloud native application, you require cloud native devs. I think they're all in this room. Generally, in New Zealand, I would say the cloud native devs are in this room right now. How can we build enough cloud native applications from scratch with you guys in the room? You're going to be working 24 hours a day. So I genuinely encourage you, if you are a cloud native dev, and I saw some said they were, some said you're not, if you are a cloud native dev, encourage your friends to join into the cloud native dev ecosystem. Side note, it's a cash cow, so it's well worthwhile their efforts getting in there. If you're a company and you're looking to deploy or build applications, be aware there are thousands of unfilled positions right now looking for cloud native devs in New Zealand. So are you prepared to run that gauntlet? So make sure that you can get devs, you can keep devs, and if you are a dev, congratulations. You've probably got a very low mortgage now. Yeah, spread the word. So you've got yourself an application. You've decided that you're going to build, you're going to buy. Next thing is to get a platform. Now, automatically, again, cloud native landscape, when I say platform, everyone says, oh, that's Kubernetes. Yeah, maybe. Kubernetes and Docker, they're both platforms, so are serverless environments. But you need to be aware, Kubernetes isn't going anywhere. Kubernetes is the best way to deliver cloud-native applications, absolutely. Yeah, Docker for smaller environments, edge compute environments that are lightweight, Kubernetes in the data center. It is the best way. It's not going anywhere. We have to understand how it works. Kubernetes isn't easy. It isn't. Those that says it is are lying. It isn't easy. It takes time to understand the principles. It takes time to understand the command syntax. It takes time to understand YAML. It takes time. You have to invest that time if you're going to go on this journey. Kubernetes, however, is the engine. Kubernetes is not the platform. It is a component. You can't hop in your engine and pop down to the shops. You can't. You have to jump in your car. By the way, the best co-creation car of all times. BMW and Toyota, absolutely. If you've not seen this, it's a Supra, for those who are not into cars. So you absolutely need a platform. You can't just have a Kubernetes orchestrator on a couple of Docker hosts in a cloud and say, I've got myself a platform, I'm cloud native. No, you're not. You'll get yourself in a world of pain. World of pain. A platform comprises a whole bunch of things. Cue the awesome build. All these things. Now, Kubernetes is the top one, orchestrator. So is Docker, but no one talks about Docker Swarm. So Kubernetes is the top one. Around that, observability. If you put your application into production on Kubernetes without observability, just count down the days until you have a massive outage. You have to have observability tools. Grafana, Prometheus, Sosovo, there's a whole bunch of tools. Call them what you like. You have to have tools to give you insights what's going on. Why? Because the platform is hyper dynamic. You blink 3 times and your pod was here, is now there. How can you possibly use tools like Nagios to monitor? You can't. You need new tools. Logging, ElkStack, Graylog. You need tools to be able to aggregate the logs from your pods. If a pod crashes and goes away, so does its log unless you have logged externally. So how can you triage a failure? If your pod explodes, you go, I want to see my log. Why did it explode? Oh, it's gone now. Yeah, just chasing your tail. So you've got to have logging. CI/CD, automation is king. Automation is not the only way to do things. Let's be honest here. ClickOps still has a place. No code still has a place. And I've got to say that because we offer that as well. But CI/CD is the best way when you are all in production on cloud native. It lets you get automated life cycling your environment. Network service and discovery, ingress controllers, load balancers, SSL certs, DNS. It's a minefield. We used to have Cisco certified people. We still have them. Now they need to understand Kubernetes networks principles too. Security compliance, RBAC, authentication. Kubernetes out of the box, if you don't know this, I might say it really quietly, it's insecure by default. If you don't know that, I would go do some research. Kubernetes expects you to know what you're doing. It expects you to know what you're doing. If you deploy Kubernetes and you start deploying your applications, it's insecure. It expects you to go and lock it down. There are no safe, secure defaults. It's open. It expects you to know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, it's open. So make sure, get things like OPA, Open Policy Agent, the Gatekeeper Service, Sneak. There's a whole bunch of tools you can use to help you secure and comply your environment. Again, I'm not going to pitch Portainer. All of this is Portainer too, but I'm not going to pitch that. See what I did there? The image repo and scanning. Every container comes from a container image. The container image has to be somewhere safe and secure. So you have to have yourself an image repo. Is it Docker Hub? That's the default. Is that the one you want to use? Or using a cloud provider? And persistent storage, if you are running persistent apps in Kubernetes, and by the way, there is a Kubernetes special interest group called Doc, Data on Kubernetes. It's trying to encourage people to put stateless services on Kubernetes because it's still one of the most underused features. I would join the Doc community, DOK. If you're putting stateful services on Kubernetes, there is a whole other world of complexity you need to think about. How do you back up in DR? I'll cover that in a second anyway. If you've not seen this eye chart before, Portainer's there somewhere. I don't know where. And in fact, I think we're probably the only company from New Zealand on this thing, so it was quite an achievement. This thing is amazing because this is the ecosystem that surrounds the platform. And because of that, there is immense complexity. How do you find the good from the bad? How do you find the flowers from the weeds? How do you know which of those products, projects, companies will exist 6, 12, 24 months from now? If you invest in the wrong one and it dies, you will look like an idiot. And not only that, you'll be stuck with a system that you have to then go and replace. So how do you know? You have to find a project or a product that has very, very high cycle rates. You have to make sure that it is either backed by a commercial entity, and that commercial entity has the ability to support that open source project. I can tell you how much it costs to support our open source project, and oh my goodness, it's expensive. So there are a lot of companies. If you look at Rancher, Rancher and Suze donated K3S to the CNCF because it costs a lot of money to support open source. Unless they can find a way to make it cost neutral for them, you want to try and offset cost to somebody else, which means you leave the community to support it. If the community doesn't support it, it's dead. So if you use open source, support the vendors or support the community. Don't do nothing. The law of compounding complexity rings very true. The more tools you get, the more complexity you're introducing to the system. However, you can't get away from adding tools. You have to have tools to get this platform. You have to. Kubernetes is a rapidly moving target. APIs are deprecated, they're added, they go from alpha to beta to release all the time. That creates interop matrices that are required for your products. Multi-tools, the most commonly known is OpenShift. A multi-tool is a single bundle where you can get all of the components you need. You update that one bundle. Sometimes using a multi-tool is better than getting the best of the best from a bunch of separate tools. It's far harder to actually maintain that. Internal dev platforms. These are really taking off right now. Backstage is probably the most well-known. They free devs and ops from complexity. They're designed to abstract away as much of the complexity as possible, to make it really easy to get the self-service portal that devs can engage with and create and deploy applications without having to know the ins and outs of Kubernetes. It helps ops get out of the way and let devs get on with building stuff. So look at these IDP platforms. And then get it live. So in order to get boss level in the game that is building your CNCF platform, let's hope you've got some easy to use tooling and you've avoided the need to retrain your staff in this tooling as well. So make sure you've got that. Why? Because there's no time to wait. Remember, you've got 24 months, you need to get action fast. Watch out for the landmines. Cloud native apps and cloud native platforms are not VMs. If you treat them as VMs, you will step in that landmine. Trust me, you don't want to step in that landmine. You have to be aware that it is a different technology with a different support cadence than virtual machines. You have to. That's just a fact of life. I'm sure you've also seen this meme around the complexity of Kubernetes. It's unfortunate because it's actually true. The top layer is all the simple stuff, and everyone falls in love with the top, gets systems in production, and then starts seeing what's under the water. I'm like, oh my God, what have I done? This is true, and there are a lot of reasons why you don't want accidental architecture. This is why it's very important to say, I want to embrace cloud native. What does it mean for me and my business? What changes do I need to make? How do I have an overall architecture that can accommodate this? Don't be surprised by the complexity. You've been warned. Platform operations challenges. There are impacts to how you operate the platform, and there are impacts to how you operate your application. I strongly recommend treating your clusters as cattle. Don't upgrade them, don't triage them, just replace them. So build a cluster, deploy your app. A new version of Kubernetes comes along, build a new cluster, put your app live. It's good practice, by the way. It's really good practice so that you can actually recover in the event of a failure. Don't bother patching the old cluster. Throw it away, get a new one. Spin, spin, spin. Makes it way easier. Monitoring performance, measuring SLAs, making sure that you can report to the business we're delivering an amazing experience. Securing the environment, making sure you've got no noisy neighbor, making sure that you can do intrusion detection prevention. Stateful applications. If you have stateful apps, you've got disaster recovery and BCP and backups in the recovery that you don't have in container world, just stateless containers. So you've got to bring this in. If you're trying to take a monolith into a container, Make sure you get ISV support. I know of a company here in New Zealand who is running a bunch of applications in virtual machines, powered off, the same application in containers, powered on, because if they have a problem, then to shut down the container, power on the virtual machine, make sure that the same fault exists so they can get vendor support, then retrofit. Massively inefficient. But that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to push through and do that. Be sure. Also, Kubernetes is highly dynamic. If you have change advisory boards, CAB boards, and you have to have change control, be aware Kubernetes will shoot and restart things that misbehave. That doesn't comply to CAB boards. So you need to make sure that you've got some kind of exception in place for that. My advice, and I'm getting towards the end because I'm way over time, is don't be a superhero. Take the well-trodden path. If you're looking to adopt technology in your organization, look around this room, speak to people in this room, find out what they're using, because don't be a lone ranger. If you are the only company in New Zealand using a piece of tech that you found on the CNCF landscape, oh my God, what are you doing? Look around. You want to have a community of people that you can get help from. The 3 a.m. test is important. It's 3 a.m. in the morning. The system has gone completely belly up. How many people can you rally around you to help you? Can you get a vendor to help you? If the answer is no, you're in trouble. Make sure that you go to meetups. Make sure you go to events like this. Ask around what other tech are people using. Use the same tech. Don't try and be a hero. Again, we're all engineers. Stop building better mousetraps as well. If there's a product out there that does the job, use the product. Don't try and make it better. Put value on your time. Your time has value. Too many engineers don't value their time. Your time has value. Put value on your time. Stop wasting your time. Never lose sight of the goal. Don't get tech drunk. I was going to have a beer bottle here with a Kube logo on it, but I changed my mind. Don't get tech drunk. We're doing this to enable our business to deliver digital services to succeed in the market. We're not doing this because it's cool tech. It is cool tech, but that's not why we're doing it. All right, don't ever forget that. So all too often I see people, and I'm in every single Kubernetes and Docker ecosystem forum and Reddit, subreddit you can think. Sometimes I think the people in those groups are there because the tech's cool, not because of what it's doing for their business. Don't lose sight of that. Sit back, relish in the fact that you're helping your business thrive, relax on the beach, got some coding, got some VS Code up, sitting back in Fiji, because it's easy to manage. And that's me done.